Hello everyone and welcome to my week 2 power rankings. Much like week 1, or this will be just like week 1 where I'll go over how strong I think each coach is currently. And by strong I'll be considering their records, their strength of schedule, hacks, player skill, player prep, and just rating the players on how strong I think they are currently. So yeah, these are completely my opinions, but let's get into it. So at number 11, I have Kudo. I just think Kudo's prep and play aren't really cutting it right now. Week 1 and week 2, he just did not prep creatively enough and didn't seem to have a way in mind of breaking down his opponent's team. He played me this week and lost 6-0. He just didn't bring things that broke my team or did anything to really pressure me. He had a Nido Queen on his team, which did a tremendous amount of work. I almost had to sack every time it came out because it was so powerful. And like really, if he made the correct predictions, there was nothing I can do to stop him from claiming him on every time Nido Queen came out. But he didn't even bring the Nido Queen, which is quite confusing. And sets he did bring were pretty predictable. He brought the same strange Clefable set again. I mean, I'm not seeing the reasoning behind the set. It looks like an unset, like unaware Flame Orb Clef, but I think Calm Mind set, the Calm Mind Clef Magic Guard Calm Mind could be a lot more effective, but yeah, I just wasn't super impressed with his play. I think he needs to be a bit more creative and really have a game plan of how he's going to break his opponent's team. Otherwise, he's going to struggle to pick up wins. So next up, I have Enzo. Enzo is in a very similar situation to Kudo. He just isn't being creative enough in his prep. He isn't anticipating the answers his opponents will have to his threats, and he's not. In the end, he's just not getting the wins. Against Jeff, he brought a superior, and it had the Venusaur was a pretty obvious answer to it, and he just had no way for it to break through the Venusaur. No way on his team in general to deal with the Venusaur. The Venusaur Sludge Bombs were super free and super difficult for him to switch in, and Venusaur was able to just completely body his team in general. But he just seemed to not be anticipating the answers his team would have. Like Slowbro was a pretty obvious answer for the Mega Gallade, either that or Sableye, and he really just didn't seem to have a way for his Mega Gallade to take out the Slowbro or the Mega Sableye either. Or it was a regular Sableye, my bad. But yeah, he just didn't seem to have ways or a plan to break down his opponent's team and what would be their common answers to his threats. And because of that, I have him pretty low. So next up, I have Flare 13. He had played both of his matches by the time I did week 1, so I don't have much to change here because he hasn't done anything since week 1. I moved him up 2 spaces just because I had to move Enzo and Kudo below him because they were less impressive than Flare. Flare brought Jolty to a pretty close game, which I found pretty impressive, while Enzo and Kudo, neither of the games were super close. And because of that, I have Flare above them. He impressed me slightly more than the other 2, but all 3 of them are winless and need to really change things up if they're going to pick up a win. Next up, I have DeWinchell. He lost pretty badly to PETA this week. He just did not seem to bring anything that effectively dealt with the Hawlucha, and that ended up being the end of him. I think he could have possibly, instead of I don't know, because it was hard because his Rotom was pressured this matchup, and so it had to deal with he didn't really have good answers to Hawlucha. His Rotom could have possibly been one, but I don't know if it actually I'm not sure if it takes a high jump kick. If it can't take a high jump kick, then not really. But like, he was in a very hard spot dealing with Hawlucha, and he needed to get kind of creative to have a way to deal with it, and he just didn't do that. So the Hawlucha just ended up going off and destroying his entire team. He could have possibly answered the Rotom Watt or the Swampert with his syllabi. I think that could have definitely taken off pressure from the Rotom if he possibly wanted to answer the Hawlucha with it. I'm not sure if... screw it, I'm going to pull that up real quick. I'm going brain dead, sorry guys. Hawlucha and Rotom, that was it. Versus Rotom. Probably should have calculated this beforehand, but it's fine. HJK. It's pretty iffy too, just like the rest of them. With rocks up. I don't know. Could have been a possible answer and allocated the Celebi instead to take on the Swampert. That could have given him better results, but he really just didn't have anything for the Hawlucha, and the Hawlucha ended up tearing him apart. So, yeah, but I am more impressed with D. Winchell than the rest of the teams, and although D. Winchell should be 0-2, he definitely kept both games, or he kept the game with Reggie close, which is fairly impressive, and also I would attribute this game more to a bad matchup than anything else. And I mean, there's something to be said with team building if you have a bad matchup, or drafting with a bad matchup, but like there wasn't much he could do to prep for that Hawlucha because it had such a good matchup. So I don't know. Yeah, so he'll stay at number 8. Number 7, I have Classiel, who's plummeting 5 spots, and so my number 7 through my number 4 team, I believe. I don't know. I forget, but like these next giant pack of giant pack of teams, I want you to know that I consider them to be all very close in skill, and I had a very hard time placing them. Like, although Classiel's 7 and dropped 5 spots, I feel that he could definitely contend with really anyone in the league. These top 7 spots, I think, are very close, and these coaches need some time to kind of differentiate themselves. So although he's number 7, I feel like the number 7 and up coaches are very far differentiated from the rest, and I think all can compete with each other, and I'm excited to see battles between all these top 7 and really see how they develop. But Classiel I have at number 7 right now. He won pretty dominantly week 1. I was very impressed with his performance. And week 2, he played Reggie, Reggie played fantastically that game, and Classiel in the early game played it very poorly, especially his Aerodactyl. He got very greedy and predicted that Ferrothorn to come in and went for an Inferno Overdrive when he could have just been getting up rocks, and like rocks probably gave him more value than probably even if he hit the Inferno Overdrive on the Ferrothorn, he probably got more value from the rocks. So I think getting up rocks, and he played very poorly with his Mega Venusaur, which was very difficult for Reggie's team to deal with. So if he had kept the Mega Venusaur around, it really could have done a lot of work and walled out his team, but letting it go down so early really was a misplay, I think. Like not keeping it healthy by choosing to click HP Fire against Ferrothorn, things like that. He needed to play his Venusaur better and have it stick around a lot longer and play his Aerodactyl better. Because he ended up kind of just being overwhelmed. I was very impressed after the early game that he was managing to bring the game back very well. Like he understood that he was very far in the back after playing the early game so badly, and made some great plays to get himself back in the game. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough, and it wasn't going to happen. He got hacked a little bit. He had a small chance at the game if he flinched the Iron Head, I think, against the Tornadus. Once the Tornadus didn't flinch and hit him with a knockoff, I think the game was effectively over, but he gave himself a fighting chance. The air slash flinch on the Bulu, at that point, I think the game was over. Classiel would need some serious hacks in his favor to win the game at that point. But he did start to bring himself back into it, and I think had he actually flinched that Iron Head, he had a chance at it. But he made a lot of misplays early on in the game that led him to lose. So I have him at number 7, but I do want to reiterate that although he's dropped 5 spaces into number 7, I think he can contend with any of the coaches above him, and it was very hard to choose, like especially these next 4 spots or so were very hard for me to pick in an order. So although he got the short end of the stick and I did put him at number 7, I feel that he could have been ranked the number 4 or 3 just as easily still. So number 6, I have Reggie. He did beat Class EL this week, and he should be 2-0 at this point, but due to hacks, he's not. But even though he should be 2-0, I think his game 1, he really didn't impress me with his prep. It was just like, I already went over in my week 1 power rankings my serious problems with his prep in week 1, but in week 2, I think he hit it out of the park. He played fantastically. He prepped fantastically. I actually did a mock with Class EL earlier in the week, and the team that he brought was very similar to the team I brought. And like, although if you're bringing this like nearly identical prep to what I'm bringing, I can't really discredit you if you are thinking the same thoughts I'm thinking and prepping the same way. So I think he prepped very well and he played extremely well. I don't really see any glaring misplays in his play. He played the game exactly how he needed to. I especially like how we recognize that since Entei didn't come to the matchup, that Finney became much more expendable, and so he used it as a pseudo check to Aerodactyl and other things to scout, which inevitably reaped a lot of benefits, making the Aerodactyl waste the Inferno Overdrive. So yeah, Reggie played well, prepped fantastically well. I was super impressed week 2. I wasn't super impressed week 1, but very impressed week 2. And so hopefully he keeps it up. Number 5, I have Hazy Basilisk moving up 1 spot. And he took down Tebig this week. I think he played the game very well. Although it looked like he was kind of getting smacked early on, it was more of him setting up for the Lucario sweep, it looked like, because the Lucario evidently had a fantastic matchup against Tepig's team, because everything slower than Lucario on Tepig's team gets destroyed by its stab, and everything faster doesn't resist an extreme speed. So Lucario had a fantastic matchup, and Hazy Basilisk exploited that to its fullest. He got down the Stealth Rock and a Spike, which were exactly enough damage to get the Victini into range of extreme speed, and was able to get himself a setup opportunity with Memento, and evidently was able to come out with the win. So I really liked how he played that game, and I was very impressed. His week 1 wasn't that fantastic, but he was able to defeat Tepig, who I ranked rank 1 week 1. So that's going to score him some major points. So I'm moving him up to number 5. But I couldn't move him up any higher. I felt, although like I said before, these teams all are extremely close in skill, in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to future weeks to see what happens and how I can differentiate them. So number 4, I have Jeff. Jeff right now is a weird situation where he's 1-2-0 and won both of the games very comfortably, but his 2 wins are against my 2 bottom ranked teams. So I feel that he hasn't really proven himself yet. Like, I can't knock him for going 2-0, but he's prepped fine, played very well. I just realized I forgot an F. I'll fix that. Yeah. Hello. There we go. Okay, that's better. So I can't knock him for did I type 2 Fs? No, I'm blind. Okay, we're good. So I can't knock him for beating my lower ranked teams, but like, I feel that I can't move him up any higher until he proves himself against higher level competition. The same thing could be said about Jolty, I suppose, who I do have higher, but I don't know. I've seen Jolty play some more, and I don't know. We'll get there, but yeah, until he proves himself against higher level competition, I'll keep him at number 4. Number 3, I have Tepig, falling down 2 spots from my number 1 spot. He was able to just get beaten by that Lucario set, like I said before. When I watched his team builder, he was surprisingly more prepared for the Lucario than I had expected him to be. He was ready for the extreme speed sweep and had his Victini as his designated thing to take the extreme speed. Now, obviously, Hazy Basilisk had the Stealth Rock and a Spike up specifically so that Victini couldn't stop it, and possibly Tepig should have been aware of this beforehand, and I think Bring Defog could have helped him out tremendously, although he really liked his Defiant set. I think he was possibly a little too overhyped on his Defiant set because like it was relying on Masquerain coming to work, and although it did work on a Memento, it didn't even do anything after that because it just got forced out by Draco immediately after anyways. So I think Bring Defog on the Torn could definitely have helped him. I don't think Defiant was worth it in this matchup. Yeah, having Defog could have saved the matchup completely, but he didn't, and Hazy Basilisk was able to get up the hazards he needed and then get in Lucario on the Sylveon. I did not mean to reveal that, but I already kind of mentioned that. But he was able to get in Lucario on a Mementoed Sylveon and sweep him from there. Maybe going Sylveon towards the end was, or at the right before the Lucario came in and the Latios Mementoed, he could have gone to something else. But hindsight's 2020, I suppose. I do have a slight problem with how fast Tepig makes his plays. He doesn't seem to calc much or consider things as much as I'd like. Maybe he does a lot of this beforehand, which, I mean, he definitely does do a lot of calcs beforehand. I can tell because he knew most of the calcs, but I feel like he should be doing more scouting and seeing what sets things are and kind of contemplating a bit more to make sure he doesn't choke his plays, especially late game like that. So yeah, that's my only criticism for Tepig. But I do know how strong of a battler he is, and he was impressive week 1, so I'm not going to move him down too far. And he is proven against higher level competition, especially from last season. So number 2, I have Jolty. Jolty hasn't played because he got both his games done week 1. He's moving up 1 spot just because Tepig fell below him. He's still prepped well week 1. Week 2 wasn't as impressive to me, but it was still okay. And he's 2-0, so that's why I have him here. He just moved up because Tepig had to fall. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's it on Jolty, I guess. Not much to say. And number 1, I have PETA. So week 1, although I still do firmly believe he should have lost week 1. If not for hacks, just for me throwing away a game that he should have lost. But at the risk of sounding arrogant, I do feel that I'm one of the stronger coaches in the league, and to take me to an even close game, and he did evidently win it, is very applaudable, I suppose. So, and the following week against DeWinchill, he was extremely impressive. He won 5-0 quite dominantly. He had some really fire tech with the Iron Ball on the Rotom. I think that was very risky because, like I said before, Celebi could have just as easily been the Swampert counter as Rotom could have been, but Rotom did end up coming for the Swampert, and he did end up tricking that Iron Ball, so I thought that was a really cool tech, and he won the game quite dominantly. He did abuse the fact that Hawlucha had a good matchup and DeWinchill just didn't have much for it, but I mean, that's what you got to do to win, and he did it to perfection. So I was very impressed with his play week 2. Week 1, he was very impressive. So I have him at number 1, and until he gets knocked off by someone else, he will probably be staying there. So yeah, those are my rankings for week 2, and I'll see you next week.